I faced betrayal and loneliness, but managed to get through it. My struggle to save my family turned into betrayal and loneliness, but I managed to rise from the ashes and find true happiness while she lost everything. My name is Michael. I'm 41 years old. I was at my desk in my large office, watching the hustle and bustle of the city below through the window. The sun was slowly setting over the horizon, coloring the sky in soft tones of orange and pink. It was evening, and most of the staff had left, but I remained seated, absorbed in thoughts of how I managed to maintain a precarious balance between work and family life. I had achieved great things in my career. My position at a large corporation was demanding, and I was giving it my all. I was proud of my accomplishments, but I realized that my personal life left much to be desired. My marriage to Julia was cracking at the seams, and it was taking its toll every day. Julia grew up in a family of financiers where luxury and affluence were the norm. Her parents had spoiled her since childhood, and she was used to getting whatever she wanted without thinking about the consequences. When we met, I was fascinated by her beauty and confidence, but as time went on, I began to notice that behind that outer shell was an emptiness. She was self-centered and capricious, and these character traits became more prominent with each year of our marriage. Since we had been married, Julia rarely paid attention to me or to our son, 4-year-old Henry. Instead, she preferred to spend her days on endless trips to boutiques and restaurants with her friends. Money flowed, and she wasn't shy about spending it on expensive clothes and accessories. I could see our family drifting apart every day, and it bothered me. Henry was a sweet boy, full of energy and curiosity. He was under the constant care of a nanny, but the lack of maternal care took a heavy toll on him. He became withdrawn and anxious, especially when his mother stayed out late again or didn't come home at all. I tried to compensate for this lack of attention by spending more time with my son, but it wasn't easy given my busy schedule. At times like these, I wondered why I had agreed to this marriage in the first place. Maybe I just wanted to start a family like all my friends and coworkers had, or perhaps I hoped that love and time could change Julia. But reality proved harsh, and increasingly I caught myself thinking that our future looked bleak and uncertain. Every day seemed like an endless struggle. The conflicts between Julia and me grew like a snowball rolling down a mountain. Every time I tried to bring up family issues, our conversations turned into pointless arguments full of hurt feelings and misunderstandings. I felt like I was trying to reach the wall, but the wall remained deaf. One evening, after another long and tiring day at work, I came home expecting to find Julia and Henry as usual, but instead I was met with silence. Henry and the au pair were already asleep in their rooms. I wandered around the house, feeling the tension building up inside me. Julia had disappeared again, leaving us alone. That was the last straw. I decided it was time to act decisively. The next day I called Julia and suggested we meet at a restaurant. I hoped that in a quiet environment, away from the walls of the house, we could talk honestly and openly without shouting and mutual accusations. We met in a cozy restaurant where the soft light of lamps created an atmosphere of coziness and romance. But even here Julia showed her true colors. She barely listened to me, constantly distracted by her phone and texting with her friends. I tried to keep my irritation in check, but inside I was seething with anger. "Look, Julia," I began, trying to speak calmly, though my voice shook with tension. "I know you like hanging out with your friends, but we have to think about Henry. He needs a mother who's there for him, not one who's out there all day long." Her reaction was predictable, but no less painful. "Oh, please don't start that again," she said irritably, glaring at me coldly. "You're always trying to control me. I'm just living my life." "This is our life together, Julia," I insisted, trying to convey to her the importance of our relationship and our responsibility to our son. "We have to take care of our child." But her answer was blunt and definitive. "You can do it yourself if you're so worried." I'm not going to change my habits for someone else. Those words stabbed into me like a blade, leaving me feeling powerless. It was obvious that our relationship had reached the point of no return, and no amount of persuasion could change anything. A feeling was growing inside me that I had lost control of the situation, and that perhaps it was time to let go of something that could no longer be salvaged. After that dinner, I realized that I could no longer tolerate this state of affairs. Our relationship had long ceased to be a joyful one, and each new conflict only made things worse. I tried to talk to Julia a few more times, but each time I received a cold rejection. She continued to live her life, ignoring my attempts at contact. One evening, coming home from work earlier than usual, I found Julia at home. She looked worried and determined. She usually left before I arrived, so her presence in the house at this hour was unusual. "Michael, I need to talk to you," she said, avoiding my gaze. I sensed that something important was about to happen. My nerves tensed like strings, ready for any turn of events. "What's wrong?" I asked, inwardly preparing myself for the worst. She took a deep breath, as if gathering her strength, and finally looked me straight in the eye. "I met someone else," she said, her tone easing a little. "He understands me like no one else, and he makes me feel good. I don't love you anymore. Love is gone. It happens. I think we'd better part." Those words came out of the blue. Although I had long suspected that our relationship was on the verge of collapse, it was incredibly hard to hear Julia say it. I felt cold, as if an icy wind had blown through my body. But at the same time as the pain, there was a strange sense of relief. Maybe this really is the best way out for everyone. "Okay," I answered quietly, trying to hide my emotions. "If you think it's right, I won't stop you. We'll get a divorce. Henry stays with me, and that's out of the question." The next morning, Julia packed her things and left, leaving me alone with Henry. The boy was confused and scared, but I tried to reassure him by explaining that his mom was gone, but that they would be in frequent contact. A storm of emotions raged inside me, but I knew it was up to me now. Divorce turned out to be a long and exhausting process. The legal formalities, dividing up the assets, determining the terms of communication with Henry, it all dragged on for months. I hired a good lawyer who helped me at every stage, but even with his support, the procedure seemed interminable. Every court hearing was like a battle where Julia and I tried to defend our positions. She was trying to get more money and property than she was entitled to, and I resented that. I understood that she was entitled to her share, but her greed and desire for material goods seemed inappropriate in this situation. Henry remained my primary concern. I did everything I could to protect his interests and provide him with a stable future. The lawyer explained to me that the court would take the child's best interests into account when making a decision, and I was confident that the judge would make a fair decision. Nevertheless, the divorce process was emotionally draining. I often caught myself thinking that I wanted to end it soon and start a new life. But every time I thought it was almost over, there were new obstacles and delays. Finally, after months of struggle, the case was finalized. The court ruled in our favor, and Henry stayed with me. Julia got her share of the property and alimony, but I was glad that I was able to keep the most important thing: the ability to raise my son on my own. The divorce was the beginning of a new phase in my life, full of challenges but also new opportunities. A few months passed and life began to take a new direction. The house became quieter without Julia, but in that peace I found new meaning. I took time off work to devote more time to Henry. We spent our days together, walking in the park, visiting museums and movie theaters. I taught him how to cook simple meals, and we laughed when things didn't work out. Gradually, we became a real team, and I felt that life was starting to get better. One night, as I was putting Henry to bed, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, I saw Julia. She looked tired and lost, not at all like the confident woman she'd been before. "Hi, Michael," she said uncertainly. "Can I come in?" I silently stepped aside, allowing her to come inside. Julia sat down on the couch and was silent for a long moment before she spoke. "I made a mistake," she began, tears streaming down her face. "He wasn't who he said he was. Imagine, he tricked me, took all the money and ran away." She sobbed, wiping her tears away with her hand. "I realized I love you and Henry. I want to come back." Those words gave me mixed feelings. On the one hand, I sympathized with her, seeing how worried she was. But on the other hand, I remembered all too well all those years of her ignoring our needs. Henry had gotten used to Mom rarely being around, and I didn't want to destroy the stability we created. "No, Julia," I said firmly, looking into her eyes. "We both know that nothing has changed. You're the same as you've always been. I don't want to go back to the past." She tried to object, but I was adamant. In that moment, I realized I made the right choice in letting her go. Despite all the difficulties we had gone through, I felt that Henry and I now had a chance to build a new and better life. Time passed, and I continued to live my life. Work still took up a large part of my time, but now I was trying to find a balance between my career and raising my son. I realized that Henry needed my attention, and I tried to give him as much time as I could. One day at work, I met a coworker named Sarah. She worked in the marketing department and immediately caught my attention with her hearty laugh. There was something special about her that set her apart from other people. She was always smiling, ready to help, and kept a positive attitude, even in the most difficult situations. It turned out that Sarah was also a single mom and had a son about the same age as Henry. We began to socialize outside of work, discussing our children and common interests. Gradually, our conversations became more frequent and longer. We realized that we had a lot in common, and it soon became clear that something more than friendship was developing between us. One day, I invited Sarah and her son to a picnic. We chose a picturesque spot in the park, laid out plaids, and had a real outdoor party. The children quickly found a common language, playing together and laughing at jokes. Sarah turned out to be a wonderful hostess, preparing a delicious lunch that we enjoyed eating outdoors. I felt truly happy and relaxed for the first time in a long time. As the evening drew to a close, Sarah thanked me for a wonderful day and kissed me gently on the cheek. This simple gesture sent me into a storm of emotion. I realized I had found the woman I had been looking for so long. She was warm, caring, and understanding, and I felt like I could be myself with her. A few weeks later, we started officially dating. Sarah supported me through everything, helping me through the challenges at work and caring for Henry as if he were her own son. Our children also became close friends, spending a lot of time together. We often took walks together, visited amusement parks, and watched movies as a family. My ex-wife Julia called periodically, asking permission to see Henry. I allowed her to do so, realizing that the boy needed his mother's company, even if only sporadically. But Julia herself remained lonely, realizing that she had missed her chance for happiness. Sometimes I felt sorry for her, but I realized that the past could not be brought back, and that now I have a new life filled with love and joy. A year later, Sarah and I decided to unite for good. We organized a modest but very heartfelt wedding among close friends and family. The atmosphere was filled with warmth and joy. The children were happy because now they had a complete family full of love and understanding. After the wedding, we decided to go on a long-awaited vacation to Bali. It was our first trip together, and we wanted to make it unforgettable. We rented a private jet to enjoy the comfort and privacy. As we flew high into the sky, I looked down at the clouds stretching below us and felt that I had finally found harmony in my life. Once we landed in Bali, we settled into a cozy oceanfront bungalow. Each morning began with breakfast on the terrace, which had a stunning view of the sea. We spent our days exploring the local beaches, sampling exotic fruits, and enjoying nature. In the evening, we would gather as a family, cook dinner, and share our impressions of the day. Now, looking back, I realized that all the trials I went through brought me to this moment. Thanks to them, I became stronger, wiser, and most importantly, I found true love and happiness.